peak performance coach for high impact leaders, AJ Madden here. Today we are going to talk about principle number 3, weaponize your instincts. That is from our 24 principles of self-protection and leadership from 1% Warrior Black Belt Boss, now available on Amazon and my website, coachajmadden.com. Please pick yourself up a copy. If you'd like to improve your leadership ability and the ability to protect yourself and those that you care about the most. Principle number 23, weaponize your instincts. Let's start out with a quote and we'll talk about our self-protection application of this principle. This is from Daniel Bohigian. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He talks about a concept called caveman versus scientist. Sometimes you have to be a scientist and sit back and think, and sometimes you have to be a caveman. Bite down on your mouthpiece and outwill the other person. Weaponizing your instincts is tapping into that caveman and tapping into your primal instincts and your natural tendencies and inclinations. What you naturally do best, and also gross motor skills versus finite motor skills. A finite motor skill would be a technique that required complicated movements and patterns in a sequence, whereas a gross motor skill would be putting your hands up to defend yourself against an attack or a strike. In self-defense, there's not a lot of thinking going on. In self-protection, especially that first initial flurry where you have to defend yourself or someone you care about, there's very little thinking going on, I can promise you. We need to rely on gross motor movements, and we have to rely on instincts, and we rely on the techniques that we have trained before and repeated, put the repetitions in over and over again, and we rely on our strength and conditioning. These are all 4 very simple things that that are the best way essentially to prepare for a violent situation. If we have no other choice but to defend ourselves, we can't get away, we can't remove ourselves from the situation, we're going to rely on gross motor skills and strength and conditioning, very simple things. Now, in terms of primal inclinations and your natural tendencies, pay attention to what techniques in terms of striking and grappling and grappling positions, grappling techniques that you naturally gravitate towards and do better than others. Techniques that you're able to use in a sport fighting situation where you're sparring with your training partners or you're competing in a match, things that you naturally gravitate towards. For example, maybe it's the Muay Thai plum where you're controlling your opponent's head and neck. Maybe in sparring and in drilling and in competition, or even a previous self-defense situation, say you do security work, you naturally gravitate towards that particular hold or position. Rep that more than others. If you're effective in that position and you naturally gravitate toward it, make yourself more effective. Now, you have to understand all positions and all situations. You have to have an understanding of different types of strikes, but pay attention to the ones that you naturally gravitate towards and do the best with. Maybe in boxing or kickboxing or MMA, a good rear hand hook punch is your bread and butter technique, and you do really well with it. You generate a ton of force. It comes naturally to you. You're able to land it on all different types of opponents, no matter what their height or skill level is. That's something that you want to double down on and really focus on that, because that's a great technique for self-defense. Your dominant hand, your rear hand, a hooking strike, there is an excellent self-defense technique. So we want to pay attention to what we're primarily inclined to do and double down on our natural strengths while not neglecting other necessary techniques and positions that we need to know, because we have to be well-rounded. We need to be well-rounded, and we also need to be sharp-pointed. Sharp-pointed meaning focus on those handful of techniques that are effective and you're also naturally inclined to do and you're naturally good at them. Let's talk about how weaponizing your instincts applies to your leadership. Here's a quote from Paul C. Brunson. A billionaire appears to be someone who is a master at everything, but in truth, they're specialists in one or a few areas and average or subpar at everything else. So how do they get so much done? Leverage. They do what they do best and they get others to do the rest. Leadership application for this principle, figure out what your biggest strengths are, where your strengths are as a leader, and match them up with the vital functions of your organization. There are a handful of things as a leader that, say you're a CEO of a company, there's two primary functions that I talk about over and over again with clients. That is number one, growth initiatives, and number two, leading leaders. You have to be proficient at those two vital functions of your organization. Now, within those two vital functions, if we talk about growth initiatives, maybe your strengths are in terms of the product. You're very good at making a tremendous product that does a lot of marketing on its own. Maybe you are not so strong in the product area, but you're a tremendous marketer or salesperson. Double down on whichever one your strengths are, and then surround yourself with people who have strengths where you're weak. So if you're a tremendous product developer, surround yourself with expert marketers and salespeople, because then you're still going to be able to focus on that growth initiative, which is one of your two vital functions as a CEO, president, a general manager, essentially a number one in an organization. And you'll be able to make up for those deficits by surrounding yourself with great people. Now, second vital function, leading leaders. This is a non-negotiable. You have to be able to lead your leaders and lead your team and lead your people. So there's different ways that you can communicate. You could be great speaking in front of groups. You could bring a ton of energy speaking in front of a team for 10 minutes to get the team excited, but you're not so great in those one-on-one conversations. Now, I would suggest you should sharpen those one-on-one conversations and translate that energy that you give to speaking to a group into a one-on-one conversation, and just shine that spotlight on the individual. The energy of that spotlight on the individual. You need to really focus on strengthening your strengths in terms of overall communication. So if you are not a great listener, you need to double down on your efforts to become a better listener. This is a learned skill. I've seen it over and over again. Someone who's not a great listener, who talks when they should be listening, you can become better at this. People think that maybe is not a teachable skill, being a good listener. It absolutely is. All it takes is discipline and a coach or someone you respect to point out when and where you can improve this through their own observation. Somebody that you trust and respect that can give you that feedback. So you can double down on what you perceive is not necessarily a natural strength. You can make it a strength. You can learn how to be a great listener. And that doesn't mean you have to learn to sit and listen to someone for 3 hours. You can listen to someone with your heart and in your focus and your attention for 5 minutes, and make that individual feel listened to, because you're laser focused on them and you're asking questions. So even things that you don't feel might be a natural strength, you can turn them into a natural strength by finding how to do it in your own way and bringing your own personality into it and your own life experiences. But ultimately, we want to double down on whatever our strengths are, match those up with the vital functions that our team needs, our organization needs, and then surround ourselves with people who are strong technically where we might not have that passion or that natural ability in. If you found this video useful, please hit like and subscribe. If you found it helpful, please share it with someone else that you believe might also find it helpful. Pick yourself up a copy of 1% Warrior Black Belt Boss, now available on Amazon.com and my website, CoachAJMadden.com, if you would like to improve your ability to lead and also protect yourself in a life or death situation. I challenge you to continue to weaponize your instincts, double down on your strengths, and continue to improve them every day, 1% better than yesterday.